Whoa.
Wow.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
It was. All right, cool. That's how you do a sync clap. Boys and girls, welcome. I hope you're...
One more clap here. One more clap here. Nice.
Well done.
You made all of our mics peak.
There you go. Do you think you can sync it to that?
What is wrong with your clapping? Like, do you have very sweaty palms right now or something?
Check it
He
out.
always has very sweaty palms.
Always,
That's
Dan.
Branding.
better.
It's
That's better than
branding.
mine. I
Oh,
also
okay.
normally have very sweaty palms.
Hell
so
yeah.
I think you're doing great.
It's the Sam brand.
Yeah, I'm just damp as the day I was born. That's really fucking gross.
Oh, that's a real damp day.
What a way to paint a picture with words.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome for that image. Look, guys, I'm being Amelia Clark.
There you go.
There it is.
Hey!
Oh, did we get the joke image in there? I don't think we got the joke image in there.
Did you send it?
I did send it, but
You
it's
can
not
add it
in
real
there.
quick.
Let's add it real quick.
We'll ad lib
Entertain-
for when
This has
people
no
watch this.
branding on it.
They used to have a gigantic Listerine ad on the outside, but not anymore. Oh man, gang, we're talking about this, and then later.
I'll add it after.
Okay, you'll add it. You'll add it after.
After.
You'll add it
We're gonna
after.
make a joke about the coffee cup. You don't have an answer for it. I'll add it after.
I
worry
am.
about it.
Stay here.
I'm so exhausted from last night.
Hey,
From excitement and joy.
No.
weirdly the opposite. But
Yeah.
no spoilers.
No
we have to get into
spoilers,
it. All right,
alright.
get ready. All right, that's recording.
Yes.
That's recording. That camera. That camera. That
That
camera.
camera.
All right.
You get a camera.
How
You don't.
great is this shirt, y'all? Just before we actually.
I'm a mom and gamer.
Now
That
wearing
is-
one of your Daenerys shirts. Really
scares
interesting.
me.
Yeah, you know,
Interesting.
funny that I went to look at my Game of Thrones attire this morning and didn't want to wear any of it. Funny how that happened.
Austin, are you wearing a gamer shirt?
I am wearing a gamer shirt.
Yay!
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Cheers, let's go.
Represent to the gamers.
Yeah, I got this in the mail surprise yesterday from Alienware. It
Nice.
says I'm a mom and a gamer, nothing scares me, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cute.
That's me.
Nice.
All right, ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome to Might Be Awesome. My name is Sam Basher, and joining us, as always, Mr. DJ Woldridge
That's me.
and Miss Trisha Hirschberger.
Yay.
Thank you. This is
for
the
having
show where we talk about Game of Thrones, and we're working our way through the final season live with all of you. Now, you guys can join us on Patreon for some deep dives into Q&As and theories and fun with guests and whatnot. But today, we're going to be hopping into Season 8, Episode 5, The Bells. This is the 72nd inaugural
Yes.
episode of Game of
Inaugural.
Thrones. Yes.
Each one is the first one. It's like the Pope.
Yes.
They're always the first
It's the first
one.
time we get to feel these feelings about this episode.
Yeah.
That's
Quickie,
true.
quickie synopsis from IMDb always is helpful. Forces have arrived at King's Landing for the final battle.
I like how
Great.
vague
Real
they get
good.
to be with these.
Not as good as when people try to guess superhero synopses for
Yeah.
movies, because people go wild and no one regulates it. Itty hoozles. We're going to hop into this. This is our final battle. All of our friends and family are here, and they are mad. Now, after the episode aired, actually during, I was spoiled a little bit by Twitter. Always a pleasure being
Yeah.
a part of that platform.
You know to stay
I know,
off,
but then I'm
dude.
like, but then my brother sends me memes in the DMs, and then you
No.
click the homepage.
Brother, you're fired.
No, they're always solid memes, 10 out of 10 spicy. But that being said, I'm gonna get spoiled. I'm
Do
walking
not
right into
disturb
that.
mode.
I can't. I need to look at the memes. Please back me up in the comments
he needs
here,
them
gang.
memes.
I
He
need
needs
those
them
memes.
memes.
But that being said, Twitter is ablaze with many different takes on this
Twitter
episode.
was on fire.
Yes,
think-
and with a lot of solid opinions, solid jokes,
Yeah.
spicy memes. But let's kick it off.
Yeah.
Hopping into it. The table is split, as it usually happens with our reviews. But let's kick it off. Trisha,
Yes.
you're watching this episode. Did you sleep last night after this
No,
episode?
I legit, like, I went to bed at probably around, I don't know, 11:30 or midnight, and woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, not able to sleep, like tossing and turning, being so upset about this episode. So I am the one on the table who did not care for the episode as much as other people sitting at this table. And for me, like, part of the reason I was up is I'm like, why did this episode make me so angry? Because that's what it was. It's like fury inside my body that was
Yeah.
keeping me awake. What about this episode made me so angry? And I don't know that I'm entirely on the Twitter train of like, it's just horrible writing, the show has gone to crap. Part of it, I feel that way, but not entirely. And also part of it that I'm like, you ruin my favorite characters, which it's Game of Thrones. They love to like set up your dreams and then crush them. That's what Game of Thrones does really well. But as we will break down more as we talk about this episode, there were very specific things. I figured it out after my hours of tossing and turning in the middle of the night. There were very specific things that happened in the episode that to me felt very unjustified and very unfair to these characters, that especially for people who have been a fan of the series since the books, we have been with these characters a real long time. Much like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
We have spent a long time with these characters.
But longer.
Right.
But longer.
But longer.
These books have been around for a long time.
But unlike Avengers Endgame, when these characters, when you feel like these characters that you have grown to appreciate so much are done dirty, it pisses you off.
There you go.
But I will say the cinematography in this episode was incredible.
Yeah.
And man, the dragons sure are pretty. DJ,
Yeah.
what do you think after this episode?
They're pretty until they're scary.
Until they're
And then
scary.
they're real scary. There was a
spoilers.
moment. Yeah. By the way, if you didn't know, I was going to start.
Salute.
There's spoilers for this episode.
You should have known that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you guys comment weird things.
So about halfway through, I was going to throw in the towel because I've been kind of vocal that it's like I felt like this show has been setting up the idea of females finding their power in a world traditionally dominated by men, and I perceive Dany as kind of being the spearhead of that. But as the episode went on, everything about it was so confident, going back to the cinematography and the way things were laid out, I kept revisiting my frustrations as the episode was going on, and as I thought back to the show that we've gotten over the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, because I think they've been shooting it for 10 years. We've gotten it for however long we've gotten it. Things clicked into place. Stuff that bothered me in past seasons suddenly made more sense. Decisions in past seasons suddenly made more sense. And things clarified, like, oh yeah, we've always been going to this. And once those light bulbs started going off, I started appreciating what was happening. And I understand that this will be a divisive finale. Like, I think the showrunners have both joked that, like, what are we going to do after the finale airs? Turn off the internet and get drunk. And it's like, yeah, you should do that.
Yeah.
Just because the passions run high with stuff like this. And I don't know, by the end, this is definitely one of my favorite episodes of the season. It might be one of my favorite episodes of the show.
Interesting. For myself, being more casual as a fan's howdy doody. If you guys are in the comment section, make sure you sound off because I need support.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed the episode, and I'll be honest. This whole season, like, it's definitely, there are criticisms where there should be criticisms. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, 2 whole episodes of you guys hanging out at camp, basically, and then all of a sudden zombies show up. It's like, whatever. I'm boiling it down to the basics, whatever.
Yeah.
With this episode, I bought everything that was happening, but at the same time, I was upset with what was happening at first. But until they start, like, kind of unpacking, like, oh yeah, like, I can see where these characters would be at this point. My boy Euron got a great out.
Shout out to you. For me, I will say that was the one moment I'm like, nah, it was fine if you got cooked on a ship.
Why did you last for so long?
Why did you come back? And also, Jamie deserved fucking better than you.
No, he didn't. He just shoved the kid out a window. He got what he deserved.
See, here's the thing. I think Euron deserves the most out of anyone. Anywho's, we're moving through the episode. We're going to be going point by point, but overall, by the end of it, where we left our characters is the most tumultuous. Did I use that word correctly?
Yeah.
Look at me. Didn't say it right, but I meant it right. If I've ever seen characters in a TV show before, because it's just not only has, like we've mentioned, Game of Thrones throwing like a couple curveballs or throwing an entire character into the garbage disposal. It felt like they threw the whole show in there, but not for bad. From my point of view, not for bad reasons. It's like, actually. Yeah, you were mentioning it before we got on the show, DJ, but it's like someone kept mentioning, like, when it comes to Dany, or no, someone else pointed this out, that, like, just Dany represented everything that came before that we try to get rid of when we killed the Mad King.
Yeah.
And, like, she wants to be better than that, but also she still represents that at the same time. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. I enjoyed the episode. Let's go beat by beat, though, as we usually like to do. Yeah. Kicking it off with Varys talking with one of his spies. His little birds, is that how he used to refer to them? It's like
which is creepy.
Yeah,
let's be fair, it's creepy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He definitely employs child labor in very dangerous jobs.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Listen, the greatest sacrifice, the greatest reward, which is why I'm having you make all the sacrifice.
I know. I really liked
Oh,
that.
the risk. I'm having you take all the risk.
Yeah, I really liked that interaction because it did make it be like, oh man, like, because I feel like a lot of us are like, Varys is for the good of the realm. He's a really smart guy. He plays the game well. Like, I feel like a lot of us are in Varys's camp, especially in this episode.
Yeah.
But having that scene was like, ooh, you scoundrel.
Yeah.
Ooh, no.
Well, and you pointed out something that's been floating around the internet
There,
with that
and,
scene.
also throwing it out to our Discord over on patreon.com/onlystupidanswers
Ooh, I like
because
this.
there was a cool breakdown of this scene because what we understood as the scene progressed, or as the scenes progressed, we see Varys speak with Jon, and we go to Dany and Tyrion talking about that she is accusing someone of betraying her. I interpreted it was going to be she was going to throw Tyrion under the bus finally because you've messed up so many times at this point. I'm just done with you. But we end up turning on Varys, and we end up killing him. But someone pointed out that the exchange between Martha, the young girl, and Varys was actually could be interpreted as Varys tried to get Martha to poison Dany with her food. Not just trying to do a good deed of keeping your queen fed. Yeah. It was that this specific young girl was sent to try to infiltrate her room or her meals that are being delivered to her and poison her to possibly for the good of the realm. And that's why he went and talked to Jon. When I watched the episode, I interpreted that scene as Varys was just trying to check in on Dany, and then later talks to Jon about like, hey, Dany's losing it, and you need to figure this stuff. You need to get your stuff in order right now. And then she wasn't okay with that. They try to go behind her back and talk to Jon. But I also like the interpretation of Varys possibly trying to poison Dany, but because also someone grabbed the line from season 1 between Ned and Pycelle, where Pycelle mentions one of the only people who use poisons are women, cravens, and eunuchs. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Also, there's plenty of Easter eggs that are hidden throughout the entire series, and we never come back to.
If you really want to break it down, we actually have an image of where Dany might be poisoned. And it's the coffee cup.
There you go. That's what we had to give
I like that theory because it's like, oh, people are playing the game again. Thank God. Like what I love about this series.
Yeah, and also kind of like justifies Dany cooking Varys, even though we don't really need any of that justification because as we see, she's kind of spiraling more. Last week, she's not doing so hot. She makes one last play of finding some sort of human connection with Jon, and Jon's he's not incest is wincest, so he's kind of like,
if he could just suck it up for one day.
Yeah, listen, if he could just suck it up and bang his hot aunt, she'd still probably murder a bunch of people.
I have written in my book, in not as nice language as I'm going to say it, but that I would like Jon to please redeem her. Please.
Well, here's the thing I like about one thing. I like that by having Missandei, the death of Missandei, be kind of the catalyst and not have it be Jorah. Is it not just like it's not a man's not going to save Dany. This is Dany on a somewhat traditional hero's journey, confronting the worst aspects of herself, and she fails. She loses. Normally, we're confronted with the worst aspects of ourselves. Our hero is confronted with the worst aspects of themselves, and they grow. And Dany doesn't. Dany caves in, and it's not. No one person is going to be able to pull her out of that because she won't let them. She has to pull herself out of that, and she chooses not to.
Trisha, I wanted to go back to your note for just a second. When it comes to this scene specifically, kind of tell us more about how you were feeling during this, specifically Jon and Dany's interaction, because she is spiraling, and Jon is still being a not wet blanket in the terms of how people use it, is that he's being mashed potatoes in the corner, basically.
He was so Jon Snow in this episode, the entire episode, and it frustrated me so much. Come on, you have seen so much as a character. Just do something. Take some action, please. Have a spine. Be a rigid noodle instead of a wet noodle, please. Dear God, al dente. Por favor.
So a lot of languages today.
So I'm telling you, I was so frustrated by this. And it's funny because I talk about how frustrated I was by this episode, and I thought, is this how I felt when I read about the Red Wedding in the books? Like, is this the same anger that I felt? Like, am I just upset because stuff went down that I didn't want to go down in my heart because I care about these characters so much? Or am I upset for other reasons? And like I said, I kind of found that it was a combination of both. Like, I'm certainly upset because I'm mourning the loss of a character that I really wanted to do awesome things, that's now been ruined. But I also am very frustrated at how it went down. But anyway, with that scene specifically between Jon and Daenerys, I have not liked in the last 2 episodes how I feel like, yes, they've been setting Daenerys up to be the villain and to be the Mad Queen for a long time. We've talked about it on this show for seasons and seasons and seasons. Everyone was tweeting out, "I will take what is mine with fire and blood." We're aware of that, and I think most people were fine with that being the outcome, but it happened so fast. And in my perspective, and I know DJ, we disagree on this. I don't think it was justified very well. Like all the horrible stuff we've seen Cersei do, as an example, or Jaime do, or any of the other villains on the series, you know why they did it. Not that you agree with why they did it, but you can understand their motivation. I think a lot of what Daenerys does that's horrible in this episode and in the last episode feels very forced. And to me, that takes me out of it and feels like maybe it's being done more for shock value than because it's part of the story, or that it's good storytelling. So when Jon came in here, I was like, okay, yes, we've got it. Dany's been going off the deep end. Like, Jon, this is a character that we know is not stupid. Please get her to think a little bit. So that's what I wanted to happen out of the scene. Like, have a conversation, challenge her beliefs a little bit. And instead, he's just like, oh, I'm being kissed and I'm not going to do anything. And then she's like, cool, it'll be fear. And I'm like, that was it? That was the end of the scene? Are you kidding?
No.
Also, I buy it for Jon. I mean, it just being the wet little mashed potato in the corner that he normally is.
The thing is it's not, this episode's not only Dany's failure, it is also Jon's failure, because he's also confronted with not only his worst impulses, but the Sansa compares him to Ned in an earlier episode. And Ned was honorable to a fault, and so was Jon. He's like, I pledged fealty, so now I have fealty, and now I'm going to be a good soldier, and I'm going to do my bit. And that was wrong.
I can put my head down and just work.
Yeah. And it's like, that's noble to a degree, but Varys was right, and his duplicitous ways were right, and Jon should, like, and the only people of our main core people, the only people that have actively learned from their worst impulses and grown, I would argue, are Arya and Sansa. Sansa's grown a lot from where she was from, and I think that's one thing that made me more comfortable with Dany's situation is I think we have a mirror in Sansa, because Sansa's gone through similar hardships and not gone off the deep end. So you can't blame the horrible things that have happened to Dany for making Dany behave this way, because it didn't have the same effect on Sansa. This is a Dany issue that she didn't figure out, that she didn't pull herself up from. And we see one of my favorite scenes in the episode is when Arya is confronted with the Hound. It's like, hey, look, all this revenge stuff you've been talking about since the end of season 1, this is what it gets you. And I really like that scene, because it's a message Arya's needed for seasons now.
Years.
7 seasons. Yeah. And the light bulb finally goes off, and she's like, okay. Because they mentioned in the after episode, like, Arya, as pig-headed as Starks can be, Arya's been one that can, like, grow and change and adapt.
And I disagree. I had very mixed feelings about that scene, because I felt like it reduced Arya back to a child following orders. And to me, took away a lot of the strength that Arya has gotten in her story arc, to be like, oh, okay, father figure, you got it. My list, all of it's gone.
I think it's more like a friend and a peer being like, look at what this has done.
Weird.
It's reduced me to a shell of a man. Do you want this?
Even
Arya
the
being like,
imagery
no.
of him, like, looking down at her with his hand on the
But
back of
no,
her head. Like,
to be fair, he's giant and she's tiny.
to be fair, that's 100% true.
She's an adult now. She's not getting any bigger.
It felt not genuine to me.
Interesting. I mean, I can see where both of you are at. The only way I kind of bought it more was because there were basically nukes going off all around them at the same time, and it was like, hey, maybe you should get out of here because Cersei might just die anyways. You know, like, but also since the show's usually done more for those characters, that I actually didn't even think about it from your point of view, and that does bring up a couple problems. But let's move back a little. Let's wind the clock back a little bit to when we get to the battle. We know that Tyrion's made a plan with Jaime to run into the city.
Yeah.
One last Tyrion, man, you've had like 30 tries to save Cersei. We've lost.
It's not to save Cersei. It's to save all the people.
True.
Yeah.
But also little bit. You get a little bit.
Yeah.
The main thing is to save the city, and you can see in Dany that, like, she didn't even say yes to the plan. She didn't agree to it in the beginning. She just moved on past that.
I'm surprised Daenerys did not kill Tyrion and blame him for the death of Missandei. That's where I thought they were going to go. And I'm like, you want to Mad Queen it up with a motivation we understand? That would have been a solid move. Yeah, I was really surprised that she is still so lenient to him.
And I mean, I like that Jaime, when he runs away, like he immediately gets caught. And we have one.
Yeah, Jaime doesn't even get through the walls of the Red Keep. It doesn't even.
I really like the I don't know about you guys, but the interaction between Tyrion and Jaime it felt like one last sincere moment that we can have in the show. Because in the finale, we might have a couple of those truly emotional beats between two characters that have been through so much together.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated that, like, Jaime is the only person that was like good to Tyrion for some. I mean, he wasn't, but for the most part when he was growing up, and the only reason that he's around today,
and Tyrion,
for better or worse.
Tyrion basically saying, "I wouldn't be around without you." Jaime's like, "No, I mean you were," and I think what Tyrion's trying to say is like, "No, I would have killed myself. I would have 100% killed myself if I hadn't had one decent person be kind to me."
I killed my dad.
I
killed our dad.
I loved that scene for Tyrion specifically.
Yeah.
Also, I did get a little pissed when he showed the key. I'm like, oh my god, Tyrion's doing his stuff again. This is so. Just stop moving.
But when he talks about returning the favor, and when he is legitimately like wanting them to go be happy together, it's so twisted. But you're like, dude. You're such a good guy. You're such a good guy. Like it was, and like when he was like, you know, what does he say? That he's gonna save thousands of innocent lives or trade thousands of innocent lives for one not so innocent dwarf.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
like if he goes, this was a good out. Like I thought that was a well done scene.
Yeah.
So we get into the battle.
Yeah, then
Dinklage is
the whole he is tremendous. We've got the good guy army lined up on one side, and we got the Golden Company lined up on the other.
Did the Unsullied multiply a little bit? Sorry, it just seemed like
well,
because
they were marching for like 3 weeks that we cut around.
I just thought we kind of mowed through a lot of them with the White Walkers, but hey,
yeah,
who knows?
and then we've got Euron ships already, and I really like the bit where Dany comes in using the sun as like cover.
That was cool.
And just obliterate, because it's like, yeah, we've done a lot of like, oh, maybe it is an even match. No, it never was. No, we saw in the Blue Train, it was just an illusion of this being close to being a fair
Well,
war.
it was a weird, we want to build the tension, so we're just going to have, like, Euron all of a sudden be amazing with this scorpion and get 3 sniper shots in a row.
But no, but remember, that's one, we didn't see
they're
them.
bird's eye view and can't see any of the boats?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, but they couldn't see the boats, and also that dragon wasn't being piloted by Dany, which the implication is having Dany controlling it makes it more effective.
With that, though,
Yeah.
I do need to point out, and because again, casual here.
Yeah.
Why is Euron the only boat firing? You have 50 to 60, I think, boats that are not firing at all.
We went full stormtrooper.
Yeah,
pew,
just
pew, pew, scorpions,
one.
and they're just all missing.
Well, I mean, it's taken turns.
wasn't
We're
ju-
taught that
yeah.
as children, and I appreciate that the soldiers are following that. No, but seriously, like you're seeing Euron prepping, and they're not showing anyone else
they show
firing.
other boats fire.
And no, they're showing the wall fire,
Okay.
and then you see multiple come at Drogon when he comes and takes
Oh,
out the.
I thought there were multiple boats
Maybe,
firing.
but you see
I thought
60.
there were.
There should be 60 arrows flying at Drogon. There's no reason why he shouldn't get hit in the wing. There should have been something just hit
and
one
I
time.
thought, okay, maybe like Daenerys has really strategized this part now that she's lost 2 dragons. Like maybe, using the sun for cover, like you said, really cool. Maybe she like worked with Drogon on some dodge techniques.
Tricks.
Like we upped his dexterity stat,
Yeah.
whatever. Like I could.
You got to do what you got to do.
I'm
gotta-
trying to suspend my disbelief to like get on board with this.
Yeah.
And I do like taking out the wall made a lot of sense for me too.
Yes,
Just because
that's
it's like
smart.
also these are stationary. Like I mean, boats can't move faster than a dragon can, but like they got taken out way quick. The Iron Fleet got taken out way quicker than I thought. But the wall, I'm like, yeah, this is dope. Just like take out the perimeter, you're trapped. There's nowhere.
Yeah.
No soldiers aren't getting out. No one's getting in. You're stuck.
Yeah.
I
And-
also loved that they showed how hard the scorpions were to fire.
Yeah.
Finally, so it wasn't
Yeah.
like this easy thing that can just
You
take
need, like,
down a
3
dragon. Like it was
people.
cool to see how they work.
Yeah.
I was on board with that, and I was on board with how quickly, like, what's the signal? It's, we're blowing up the wall, and we immediately run in, and it's just
and the Golden Company's taken out like that. Like when the wall blows up, they're basically decimated, which is why we didn't get elephants, because why spend that money if they're just going to get set on fire?
We tried.
Yeah.
We had to have tried at least one time. But no, everything's destroyed, and I really appreciate the moment of everyone throwing down their swords, but like it kind of felt like when the aliens died in Avengers and everyone just fell down and went to sleep. But it just like, and throw the sword down until we get to the Red Keep. But Trisha, you made a sound. How are you feeling about? Well, okay, getting before Danny does Dan. How are you feeling about the battle up to this point?
Up till this point, I was pretty on board with the battle. Like I said, I'm trying to like suspend my disbelief with some of this stuff. Whatever, it's a fantasy show. I'm on board. It's Game of Thrones. I love it. Let's do it. I was very into what had happened so far. I thought taking out the Golden Company that early was probably a smart move because since we didn't really care about anybody on that side, I know
We
they
got the
tried
one
to
guy.
like make that general guy a thing, and I was like, no one cares about that dude.
Yeah, you look somewhat familiar.
So that was completely okay. I actually liked that Danny blew out the wall from behind because I thought at this point that she was trying to find a way to get in and take over the city without murdering thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I was on board with this up until this point. And then the turning moment for everyone, and I think intentionally, was the like 20-year silence waiting for the bells to ring. Hence the name of the episode.
Yeah.
That was like I saw people tweeting that there was zero tension in this episode, and I disagree with that because that was the longest, however long the hell that was of my life.
I dug
wasn't breathing. I dug it too. I thought it was super well done. When the Lannister soldiers put down their sword, Cersei's up there with Qyburn. You don't know what she's gonna do, and Daenerys is just sitting there on the dragon, like teetering on the edge. I thought that was so well played. And I think when the bells rung, everyone ushered a huge sigh of relief. We're right there with Tyrion, like not wanting her to go this route. And I feel like it was a cheap bait and switch by the show to make us all feel like, oh wait, yes, it's war and it's horrible and tons of people have died, but like this could actually be somewhat salvaged. And that was the moment for me, right after the bells rang, the moment when you can see in Emilia Clarke's face, God bless her heart, she's a wonderful actress.
Yeah.
You can see her lose it and switch. To me, she knew that when the bells were rung, that meant the city was surrendered and she had taken the Iron Throne. So for everyone who's like, I will get what is mine with fire and blood, she had just gotten it. She won. I was expecting that crazy laugh to be like, crying with happiness, oh my God, I did it. Oh my God, I finally did it. And instead, this was the part that didn't read to me. Instead, they went with, you know what, I got it, but I'm gonna murder thousands of innocent people anyway. And that to me was entirely unmotivated. Yes, she's upset that Missandei died. Go get Cersei. She's in the Red Keep. You know where she is. You don't need to snake up and down through the thousands of people until you get there. Like, this is someone who her entire character arc, we have seen her try to save the downtrodden. Why all of a sudden did we switch and murder everyone after the war was won? Like, if she murdered a ton of people to win the war, I would have understood that motivation. Again, not okay with it. Don't murder kids. I have a real problem with kid murder. Wearing the mom
I'm
shirt.
putting my foot down on that.
Problem with kid murder.
Controversial opinion, not down with kid murder.
Right. So I still would have been like, Danny has become the Mad Queen. Look at all the people she murdered. It would have been awful, but at least I would have understood a motivation being there instead of zero motivation besides, I guess I'm finally crazy now. That's not enough of a motivation for me for that to have happened.
Piggybacking off that, I also was like, oh, she's looking at the Red Keep. She go to the Red Keep. And it was like, oh, she's going to get some troops on the way. Oh, those are people. That's clear from
I
her
thought
point of
that
view.
too.
Those
I
are
was
clearly
like, okay,
just
she's
people
getting some
running.
troops on the way.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then I'm like, okay, she's going to get the Red Keep. And then she hits it. And I'm like, wow, she's really hitting it and going back and getting more people and then going back. I was confused why she's snaking through it. And I think we will open up that in just a second because it's like, why exactly that? Talking about it now, it's starting to open up more things in my brain from the show that I'm remembering. But it made, I think I bought it enough why she would do something like this. I guess what I'm just trying to say is when I'm thinking back, what was the Pyramid City where she stayed for like 17 seasons?
Marine.
There we go.
Yeah.
And seeing how the people started turning on her slowly and started ceding dissent, and you started seeing other spies and whatnot start turning on her, and basically the entire city turned on her at one point, even though she had freed them. You could have brought that up, someone could have mentioned that, and you'd be like, oh, so she knows that like even saving the city doesn't mean that you have the city.
Yeah.
And like you could have made a point there, but you don't. And you mentioned a tweet from Anthony Carboni, friend of everybody.
Yay,
He's a great
Anthony
guy
Carboni.
about earning something like this. in a truncated season like this. And I think what was something specific? Like what was kind of what his point was?
His point was. People are not upset because of the direction this went. We all expected it to go this direction. It was how it went down because it was so truncated and strange and felt unearned. That's why people are frustrated.
There you go, DJ.
Yeah, I was like I said, I was frustrated at first, but you go all the way back to season 1 with Miri Mazdur, who was the woman that Danny saved and tried to have her heal Drogo, called Drogo, and he got infected and died. And she pat herself on the back, like, listen, I saved you, Miri. And Miri was like, well, no, I'd already been raped, and my friends had been killed, and my temple had been destroyed, so you really didn't save anybody. And I was getting revenge on the person that destroyed my culture. And then Danny sets her on fire. This has always been Danny's MO. Whenever you piss off Danny, she sets you on fire. Every season, she sets somebody on fire. She's crucified the Masters. She set the Tarleys on fire. She doesn't know how to handle being told no. And her entire life, it's like you're the Messiah. And her whole Tyrion even brings up, like, she walked in fire and came out dragon eggs. And it's like that hero's journey, that classic hero's journey that we always root for, would make you crazy because nobody should have that type of God complex. Nobody. And so, of course, she would have lost her mind. Everything this entire show has been doing would make somebody have that entitlement and that when she's like, mercy's not our weakness, mercy's our strength, and we'll give mercy to future generations.
How
after
very
that.
Thanos of her.
Yeah, like of course, like it's this hasn't been just now. This has been the whole show, but because we empathize with her, and traditionally the people she sets on fire, people we also don't love. You know what I mean? Like we've justified it, and now finally that wrath has been directed to people that don't deserve it, and we realize like, oh no, Dany's always been somebody that needed to be reined in a little bit. Like even when Missandei's like Dracarys calling back to when she set her master on fire. That was duplicitous, and like it was like again these aspects of in Jon's nobility, these aspects of these characters that we laud have times and places, and this is them being confronted with, hey, maybe the thing we like about you isn't the thing you need to do all the time.
So I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I agree with all the Dany character stuff that this has been in her, but like Miri Mazdur, who murdered her husband and her unborn child. There was
we don't
a
know that
motivation
she murdered the child.
there.
The child was already a mutant.
No, she did that weird black magic. Yes, 100% she murdered that unborn baby.
Yeah.
You can understand this is a person who's murdered my husband and baby. No. I am now going to roast her. You don't have to agree with that. No. But you can understand what her motivation was there.
A plus C equals burning her alive.
Yeah. Totally. Well said, Sam. But it's not like the thousands of innocent people in this city had openly declared allegiance to Cersei. It's not like they had said, we're going to stand in the way and defend the Red Keep from you, Daenerys. These people did nothing. And I don't think it's as much, at least for me, it might be for other people out there, but I don't think it's as much that the people she has burned alive or done horrible things to, we thought, oh, they're bad people, so I'm okay with her doing that. So much as I understand why she's doing that. Yeah. And with the thousands of people that were innocent women and children, we were never given a reason.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think that goes on along the lines of like, if you compared to Thanos, people were like, oh, Thanos is insane. Like, if you actually break down Thanos' motivation, it doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. He's thinking irrationally.
But he also wasn't a person we rooted for.
I understand that. But Dany's behaving irrationally.
But you could justify, like, you can see why Thanos felt the way.
Yeah, and I can understand why Dany's behaving irrationally.
I think it comes back to also it's the why kill the innocent people on her way to go take down Cersei? Is it a dig at Cersei to show you that you didn't just lose, you lose?
But again, there is no reason. There is no reason.
Well, also, but
that is the reason. There is no reason.
Daenerys has not been batshit insane, chaotic neutral until the last 2 episodes, essentially. She has had things that you're like, I wouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been my choice. That's a little over the edge. But not totally just like, hey, I'm the mad bomber.
Well, no, if you've given somebody as a child 3 nukes and then took away all of their friends, and then told them, and then had them realize nobody in this area loves them, and you expect them not to use that last nuke to just like, fine, I'm going to just take what I want. Boom. Yeah.
With that, when we're moving through all the children dying because of Daenerys, our favorite character, we are seeing Grey Worm having some awesome violent moments, but also you're feeling awful because he shouldn't be doing this. But just in a bottle, you're like, wow, he's really good at killing people.
Yeah.
Anyways, but also through that, we talked about this earlier, coming back to the Hound and Arya, but focusing on the Hound for a second.
Yeah.
We get the Clegane Bowl.
Finally.
Trisha, how are you feeling about the Clegane Bowl during this?
I liked the Clegane Bowl a lot. I thought
Cinematically, it was
cinematically it was beautiful. It was shot so well. Whoever's decision it was to do it on the crumbling staircase, bravo. That was astounding. I also loved that they decided to knock off the helmet and a lot of the armor and show us what poor
You
Greiger
have
looks
to.
like now.
Yeah.
I thought that was a wonderfully satisfying moment.
And Qyburn.
As a fan. Yeah, my favorite part was how insignificant Qyburn's death was. How we just blew right past it. And then Cersei just like tiptoed around like,
It's like, okay, I guess this
"Bye."
doesn't involve me. I'm gonna.
But I thought all of that was brilliant. I thought that was very well done.
And while that's going
really good.
on, we see Arya now becomes our point of view character in the city down below as she's trying to A, survive, and B, help other people survive.
And fails.
And does not do so hot because it's a real, like, this is some Saving Private Ryan D-Day type situation going on here. And I think this episode really doubles down on the idea, like, we want our good guys to win, but really no matter, I think John learns that lesson where it's like, you come in with all these high and noble ideas, but war is war, and the guy that he kills that's trying to rape a woman is a Northman. You know what I mean? So once all bets are off, like, war, this is bad. It's bad. It's always bad. It doesn't matter what side you're on or what your goals are. War's always bad.
I love that they showed it through Arya's eyes because it
Yeah.
really did make us focus on the everyday people rather than our major players, which was a very moving choice.
Yeah.
I also wrote here my side thoughts as I'm watching the episode. Where are Arya's tunnels? Remember how Arya knew all those tunnels in King's Landing as a child? Did she just forget about all of them? 'Cause
They
I was
might
like,
have rocks in them.
They might be filled.
I mean, maybe, but
Rocks
she
in
doesn't
there.
know. She doesn't even try. I was
We
hoping
don't
she
see her
was going to
try.
get some people and get them in the tunnels
I wish
and get
it-
them.
what if
That's what I was.
What if she got so close and still got barbecued?
Yeah.
Just like Andorra.
Speaking of
Totally could have happened.
Speaking of tunnels, I think another thing you had issue with is we finally get the closure of Cersei and Jaime. R.I.P.
A lot of people are saying they threw Jamie's character development out the window. Does the table agree with said tweet that I saw this morning? I don't.
I don't either.
Interesting.
A lot of because they're saying like we got to see him grow as a person, become
Yeah.
better, and it's like before the North, and also in the North, he doesn't apologize except for to Bran what he did. Everyone else, he's like, no, I did it because I wanted to. So,
I bought it.
yeah, you his ending near here, his ending that we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, same because also again, like maybe he was in the North for like or traveling to the North and in the North for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe time doesn't make sense anymore. But he wasn't there for very long, and he had been with Cersei for 30 to 40 plus years, his entire life. So he doesn't have room to have that growth and fully move on and get to be a good person.
Yeah.
And he hasn't earned it in any sense of the word at all. He was nice to Brienne. And stop.
I bought it for him. My problem with it was her.
Wow.
I didn't feel like it was accurate to Cersei's character. I bought it for Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
I did not buy that Cersei, this totally badass biatch who has come and gone and shown no emotion, is suddenly pulling. Can I spoil Infinity War? Suddenly pulling a Peter Parker and is like, I don't want to die at the end. That is not Cersei. She would have been scheming right up until the very end, even if she knows all is lost, because she's known that for a while, let's be honest. And I don't know. I did not buy it for her at all. I thought it was a very weak ending for her. And there were so many creative, wonderful ways that we could have ended Cersei. And instead we did it with a pile of rubble buried alive with her lover.
I liked it. I liked it because one, it's that she's always been putting on a brave face, like putting on that steely front, and finally at the end she doesn't have it anymore. And of course she's afraid to die. Who wouldn't be? You know what I mean? And also you've got death raining down from above, and it tracks with a lot of when our big bads die on this show. It's not cathartic. because it
Oh,
shouldn't
yes,
be.
it is.
It
oh,
was.
come on,
It was.
Think of Joffrey. That
No,
was
I
beautiful. Think of
really
Ramsay.
no,
That
I
was
didn't. I thought both of
delicious.
those were underwhelming. I honestly thought both of those like yeah, I felt like really that's all this person gets, and it's the same with Cersei, and it's also a really humanizing moment for Cersei, which is also important too because that's what we're showing with Dany is that people making decisions for what they think is the right reason doesn't. I mean, we were all talking about Twitter. How many times have people gone scorched earth on actually a really good progressive idea, and they're being a complete jerk about it? You know what I mean? The best intentions, Jamie even says it. Like all the worst thing she's done was for her children. That was motivation for literally all the worst things she's done. It tracked for me, and I thought it was a good goodbye.
I'm with you in the sense that I was like, oh, Jamie bleeding out here. I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. I didn't buy that she had any more plans because it's like, no, you thought you had a one up. You actually thought you could. You killed a dragon.
Yeah.
So I thought she was basically good to go. And as soon as everything gets nuked, I'm like,
She's
there's
even with
actually
Qyburn, we're like talking about planning till the end. She's like, we've got this. Qyburn's like, and then she's
we
like, but
need
what
to
about
go.
this? Yeah.
And I like that she was so confident at the end. You're like, no, Dany blew out all of your plans. All of your backup plans are gone. So I was fine with that she didn't have a plan past that. And in the multiverse out there, maybe she got eaten by a dragon. You can throw it out there, and we still got the
Maybe
books coming.
Ghost comes in from
just bounding through a portal.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
Hey,
it.
there's a couple other direwolves out there. Maybe they made their way. They were scrounging for food over in the tunnels. Hey, that could have happened. Last thing we see in this episode is Arya waking up, and the way they show us how she is dealing with the fallout of seeing that she couldn't save that couple. Also, I liked that we got to see the mother and the daughter, this just random family throughout the entire battle and a battle, slaughter. It was not a battle. It was not a battle for them whatsoever. And getting on the horse because you're like, Arya's gonna go after Dany. That's pretty straightforward at this point, right? Like that's where we're probably gonna see.
I know everyone's using the eye thing to justify that, but to me, Targaryens always have purple eyes, so whatever.
Yeah. Also, I mean-
but the horse thing, I don't know if you guys went down this rabbit hole, that like Arya having seemingly died so many times in this. Like I feel like we were all like, oh God, she's dead. Oh, thank God she's not. Oh God, she's dead. Could it be that they're setting up, because the little girl that she was trying to protect that didn't make it was holding a white horse? Could it be that Arya on the white horse at the end, instead of it being a heroic thing, is actually embodying death? And maybe she actually didn't make it, but because of some tie-in with the many-faced god. See, now I'm like, but now I feel like I'm getting too excited and too cool, and the show's gonna let me down again because they're not doing cool stuff like that anymore.
What? It was cool. You saw the dragon. No, you didn't. Hey, oh, sorry. Excuse me. Coolest part. Euron. He got to take out Jaime Lannister. He's gonna get songs about him. My dude.
Yeah.
My
Nobody even knows. Nobody knows. Nobody
No,
knows. Nobody cares.
I did see a really funny tweet.
Nobody knows. There's no reason for anyone to know that Euron took out
No.
Jaime.
No, that was just for
Oh,
him.
it was 100% for him.
Yeah.
What a gross.
I think you might be
used
mentioning the
trash can of a man.
What was your tweet? What was the tweet you were going to mention?
Oh, I was going to mention a tweet about the white horse, but
Oh, okay.
stick on Euron.
I saw that.
Euron.
Oh, the tweet I saw was Euron died the way that he lived, with everyone saying, "Oh God, this guy again."
So
My bro.
True.
on
character.
that, should we rate the episode?
We should. Trisha, let's kick it off with you. Out of 10, Euron's winning. What would you give this episode?
I don't even know that I can rate it. Because as an episode of television that is not Game of Thrones, I would rate it really high.
Oh.
But as an episode of television that is in the Game of Thrones universe and is trying to conclude this series that has been there for so long, I thought it was total shite. So it's very hard for me to rate it.
So maybe a 5.
I
Split the
don't know.
difference?
I don't even, maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't even know because that's not
Out
accurate.
of Euron's, I'd give it a 10. No, I mean, for my enjoyment of the episode, I'd give it an 8. 8 out of 10. And overall, where the characters ended up, I think, Trisha, you brought up some good points where it's like, because it's truncated, if you gave it more time to breathe and we can live with these decisions, we would understand where everybody's at.
And I understand from a Hollywood perspective that they actually couldn't do that.
Yeah, there's not actually enough printed money in the world for that to happen.
Yeah.
But with something kind of shrunk that the way it was, I bought everything that for our characters. I'm bummed definitely, like we are with the show when it comes to certain character decisions. But overall, I think I support the writers enough. And even though Euron jokes aside, I thought that was actually such a fitting death for Jaime because we've been rooting for him, but also reiterating he kicked a kid out of a tower and has done, like, honestly, in the grand scheme of everything he's done, very little to be a better person. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for a garbage person, but overall, yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10. Also, cinematically, I just wanted to point out I did like when the further we got up with Drogon and looking at King's Landing, it looked more like the map because you're like, this is the scale of this battle is so much bigger than you think, and the ramifications of what Dany's doing right now are worse than we can think. But it's a bummer that there's only one episode to unpack this. Barely. Like, I don't know if we're gonna unpack it really. We're just gonna be dealing with 5 minutes after.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
I'd give it a 9. I like this episode and also clarified some issues I've had with the show. Like, things make more sense now in hindsight. But I know our pal Emma Fife had some differing opinions on the show. So let's cut to a clip from Patreon. Except right now you're on Patreon, so you're going to see that in a minute.
Yeah.
But when this goes up, you're going to, you know.
But yes, please go check out patreon.com/onlystupidandrews. You can click up here or in the description down below to go watch the full episode. Wow, how fun. Trisha, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at @GRLTrish or on YouTube or Twitch /Trisha Hirschberger.
DJ?
Hey, DJ Talks Trash.
Sam at Sam Basher or at Might Be Social, Instagram and Twitter for everything that we're up to. We've got a lot of fun videos pertaining to Detective Pikachu and deep dives into Pokemon and John Wick Chapter 3 and
Yeah, check out his explainer of if you like Detective Pikachu, because of course you did. You can check out what it would be like to actually live with the Pokemon.
Also,
It would be challenging.
speaking of Emma Fife, we have a brand new episode of our podcast, Only Stupid Answers Out, where we dive into Detective Pikachu and just our love of Pokemon. Man, I unlocked so many memories I didn't even know I had
Yeah.
anymore. It's a pleasure. Go check that out, onlystupidanswers.com. And until next, guys, and the Times Gang, oh my god, I was so succinct with all my words to this episode. I had to bungle it at the end, like Game of Thrones. Boom! And boom!
Bye-bye.
Danny dabbed all the way down on her dragon. There you go. All right, so we'll cut to a little thingy, and then we'll be right back to thingy.
Thingy.
Whoa, that's the Patreon part. Check this out. Whoa, that was pretty cool, huh? All right, we're going to be hopping into it with a very good friend of the show, Miss Emma Pye.
I would like to point
Yes.
out that on our podcast today, it was one of my favorite podcast episodes we've done, also including Emma Five
Yes.
talking about Pokemon. So if you like, even if you don't like today's episode, go check that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you like joy and
Yeah.
just genuine nostalgia
Yeah.
and not a lot of controversy, listen to the episode about Detective Pikachu and Pokemon.
It'll warm your heart.
Yeah.
Like how
really-
the bodies of the corpses of King's Landing are so warm.
Literally, because they were set on
Mainly
fire.
the children.
I'm gonna have to
Oof.
listen to that podcast like immediately.
Yeah.
It really, like, really, this morning, after very much like Trisha, being so angry and having trouble sleeping last night and just like constantly looking at Twitter and just getting more mad. So I don't know why I didn't just get off the internet. One of the first things I saw this morning was the tweet from Only Stupid Answers going up saying, "Here's our Detective Pikachu episode," and I was like, "That was so much fun!
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
please
Watching-
listen to this."
There were so fewer dragon deaths in Detective Pikachu.
Yeah,
Spoilers for that.
so fewer dragon deaths.
I'll just say
Yeah.
fewer.
Fewer.
So you're walking your way, because you usually say movie reviews.
Yeah.
You're walking your way out of your living room, watching this episode of Game of Thrones. How you feeling?
So mad.
So kind of breaking it down.
No, it's really funny. So yesterday I got home sort of late, so I watched it a little bit later, and I hadn't talked to my mom yet. It was Mother's Day, and so I texted her, and I was like, "Mom, I gotta just finish watching Game of Thrones, and then I will call you." And my mom's like, "That's totally fine." So I call her, and my mom goes, "So what'd you think?" And I went, "I hated it." She said, "You and your brother both." So yeah. I was very angry, not because I didn't see this coming. And, you guys were talking on the main episode a lot about how I don't think anybody is mad about this outcome. I'm just mad about how we got here. And a lot of the reason for me with that is that I am a little bit mad at the outcome in some ways because I wanted them to do better. This is exactly what I thought was coming. They have been broadcasting this so hard, particularly this season. It started with Sansa and Daenerys not getting along with one another. And I was like, oh, well, that means that Dany is definitely going to go full Mad Queen. I absolutely saw it coming. And it's just frustrating to me from the point of view that, the whole Daenerys-Sansa feud was super frustrating to me anyway, especially because, there have literally been studies done. It was an episode of, I want to say, Wait, Don't Tell Me that I was listening to, where they were talking about how women tend to not be as good at Scrabble as men. And what it boils down to is that women don't care, that women value cooperation and collaboration more so than competition. And I think that has been one of the biggest downfalls of Game of Thrones in general, especially if you look at the books where they're setting up to have this big collaboration of women. You've got all of the Sand Snakes and Arianne Martell, who's not in the frickin' show, it's one of my favorite characters, going to King's Landing in disguise to start laying the seeds of building up the coming of Daenerys, the Dragon Queen, who's gonna come save everybody. And instead, in the show, they went the route of she gets there, everybody hates her, and then, the final straw for her, and this, I think, is what they were trying to set up as her motivation for why she suddenly decided to just murder a bunch of innocents. Because going back to what you guys were saying again on the main episode, and Trisha, you brought up this good point of, yeah, she's burned a lot of people in the past. Her burning people didn't surprise me at all, but it was that there was much more of a direct motivation. The only motivation that they set up here, from my perspective, and I'm sure there are people who disagree with me, is that the straw that broke the camel's back, and I agree with you, DJ, that Missandei's death was the main catalyst, but the straw that broke the camel's back was that Jon was probably don't want to sleep with my aunt. Now, again, there should have been a freaking conversation on Jon's part. So yes, some of this is on him, but what a lazy, trite, overused motivation to have a woman go, oh, my boyfriend doesn't love me anymore. I guess I'm just going to have to murder everyone now. That's the way I saw it.
If I could,
Go, DJ, go.
counterpoint is I didn't perceive it as that's the straw that broke the camel's back. Camel was done. Camel, the one you see that shot of her. I think we've got an asset of her looking out the window, all like she.
Kinda sick.
Yeah, she's not looking great. Before that, there you go.
Oh yeah, because a lady with no makeup means she's nuts.
Totally. Totally.
That's not what I mean. But I think Jorah Missandei, nobody really like her whole thing's not been working out. I think she's making one last either A, she's making one last ditch effort to have a human connection on this side of the pond, and she's not able to, or two, she's proving a point to Jon. I have no, and I was disappointed last week with the death of Missandei because it felt like fridging.
Yes, I agree.
However, within the context of this, I'm glad it wasn't Jorah. I'm glad it was her one close female confidant.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That was kind of like now it's done. Now I don't really have anybody else I can count on.
I guess so. I guess for me though, it's that she started from a place of not having anybody that she could count on, and of just, if you go all the way back to Daenerys at the very beginning, yes, she has spent a lot of time building up these relationships, but it ultimately comes back to she was very much in charge of her own agency and of her connections that she was making, but ultimately the strength was coming from within her. And so it was frustrating for me to see like, oh, suddenly just because you're on your own again, and you've done well on your own before.
Yeah, you were smart before this.
Yeah,
That-
when she was taken prisoner by the other Dothraki,
And
right?
Yeah.
How'd she get out of that?
By yourself.
But did she
remember. I mean, you're-
burned.
Wait,
She
wait,
burned.
she did.
She
sorry.
burned everybody. She does every time she's backed in the corner. She burns
Well,
everybody.
but like Emma said, and I mean that's a fair point, but like Emma said, none of us are surprised that she burned people.
No,
Yeah.
we're not
And
surprised.
if the people that were in there had somehow like, I'm gonna behead Missandei if
Again,
you all cheer for it, and they all
100%.
cheered for it,
Percent.
there
That's-
would be a motivation.
Exactly. That is what it boils down to for me, is that, once the bells rang, she could have just gone straight to the Red Keep and had a confrontation with Cersei. It's the burning of innocent people who genuinely were not trying to fight. Like, that's the thing, is the army of King's Landing, the Red Cloaks, they were not fighting back. They dropped their swords and were like, you know what? We surrender, we're done. And if they had shown if they'd shown loyalty to Cersei, if they had actively encouraged for Dany to witness the death of Missandei, then I would get it more. But it really just, for me, came out of, again, I thought this was the way they were going. A few more scenes, maybe another episode. Again, feeling like maybe I missed an episode. Building her up to this totally batshit point, fine. But it felt unmotivated to me.
I was
Sam.
just kind of confused, mainly that she went for the people first before
Yes.
going to the Red Keep, because it was like
Correct.
and-
Oh, here's the thing. Turn this episode around. She goes to the Red Keep. She has her final showdown with Cersei, murders her, the Red Keep falls, and then she goes back and burns the whole city. That makes a lot more sense to me, because probably
agree.
something happens in there in this moment of her going and like burning Cersei down, this person who she's been trying to take down, who from her perspective has what is rightfully hers. Go take that with fire and blood, and then you're like, now I got it. Now I'm fucking crazy and I'm gonna burn everything down. That makes more sense to me than the order of events in which things happened.
Sam, I liked what you said. I think you were saying it on camera in the other main episode that you had hypothesized what maybe some justifications for Daenerys burning all of the innocents could be, and you were like, maybe, I think you said maybe
Green.
she's showing Cersei, maybe she's proving something to Cersei. If we had a small scene, even
Where she had a conversation with Cersei,
or a conversation with Varys or Tyrion or anyone saying, I'm gonna show her just something that would justify the murder, not even justify. There's no justification for the murder of thousands of innocent people. No justification for kid murder.
Again, controversial opinion, but this show is not for kid murder. It's just,
Not for kid murder. But if we had even had some peek into why she would maybe do that,
right?
I think it would have sat a lot better with a lot of people. And Emma, I think you're voicing it very well when you say like that's what you saw, and obviously you and I are in a lot of agreement.
Yes.
But I'm sure there are people out there like DJ who bought the motivation.
Sure.
It just, for me, seeing no motivation made this the most frustrating thing because I think a lot of us have been Team Danny
Yeah.
for a while, and having something so horrible happen with seemingly no motivation
Yes.
is really devastating.
And I think I'd say with their I think in the episode there's a clear line to getting her to this point specifically, but again talking about unpacking things longer, maybe one extra episode you're like, wait, maybe I missed something. We see her not give a rat's ass about what. I was gonna try not to curse and I said ass.
I already
We're
cursed.
Patreon. We can curse
Yeah, we
now.
can
A
curse.
rat
I
tiny.
do think I need to go back to
You need to
something I
believe
said.
I said the F word in the
I think I said the F word too.
Yeah.
I'll have to go through it. I'll
Which
have
is
to go
good.
through it. Yeah.
But in this episode, you see her be done with what Tyrion has to say.
Yeah.
You see that another one. Not only is she losing another one of her confidants with Varys, is that no, he actually tried to betray you. And
Yeah,
behind
and
your back.
when Tyrion goes, like, somebody betrayed you. Is it John? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Red flags all over the place.
So,
Uh-oh.
so you're seeing these things, and you see that with you see that, and you see.
But
there's another point in my head.
She also cried when she had to kill Varys. She had motivation to kill him and
Yes.
still felt for him. So
Mm-hmm.
to have her not feel for any of the innocents who didn't commit treason, it
Yeah.
felt so false
with that,
to me.
with that, I don't disagree with you. I was more okay with it because I bought. I'm like, I'm probably missing something. Usually with the show, I'm like, I probably missed something. But with that, I think there were enough, moments for you to see. Oh, and also the point I was trying to make is when she says it's mercy to the people, the generations to come after.
Yeah.
So it's like
That's her
you're-
motivation. That's
you're
her
kinda like-
rationale.
she's gonna fertilize the land so that you can grow a better crop. And I
Well,
was
how?
like,
She killed all the people. How are they
Right.
making more people?
After specifically a couple seasons, or I guess maybe just last season, having a conversation with Olenna Tyrell, wherein she said, I don't want to be Queen of the Ashes.
Yeah.
Oops.
oops.
That worked out great.
Well, she
No.
only did to half. Again, Thanos.
Thanos.
If you don't have the resources, you're golden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think for me, my one issue with it is the kind of the optics of, like, you have one of your primary lead rulers who was the one to unite the only people of color on the show. Is like now the bad guy. It's like, that's not great. But I think that's a fault of the show of not having more diverse cast. I get it. But it's a fantasy thing, so it doesn't really. It wasn't that way in the past. This wasn't
Doesn't
our
matter, it's
past.
fantasy, there's
It's fantasy. It's not a real place. I think
That's such
for
a
me,
great point.
yeah, it's like it's
zombies
not,
are running around.
Yeah,
We
it's
can
not.
do whatever we want.
It's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
I think the show made a couple promises to us in the first season that now, in hindsight, make more sense to me. It said, "Hey, the Starks are the good guys," which is still true.
Yeah.
And two, don't trust the traditional hero's journey, because we had Ned, and the idea with Ned is noble, Ned is honorable, Ned does the right thing. And in other genre stuff, that's great.
yeah, usually
Yeah,
in
you're good to
fantasy
go.
literature,
Well-
you know
And
where
Ned
that's
and
going.
Ned got his head chopped off. And Danny's gone through a traditional hero's journey where, like I think I said in the other episode, it's like you get these magical dragons, and you're the chosen one, and you're the perfect bloodline, and you're gonna save everybody. And of course, that made her insane. Nobody,
But it's interesting, and I don't know. I think this maybe comes from a reading the books perspective. Reading the books, I wasn't sure in the beginning if I was supposed to be rooting for this girl or not, and she made me root for her
Yeah.
based on her own agency and how resourceful she was and how she learned to find her inner strength even in this horrible circumstance where she'd basically been sold
Yeah.
to Khal Drogo,
Yeah.
and how she found like her sort of her voice and her power within that, and realizing that, oh wait, no, actually I don't have to like fall into the Targaryen line. There's a bit in the book where she says that, where she kind of talks about how she's really in love with Khal Drogo and how she never expected that she would get a chance to be in love with somebody because she just thought she would always marry Viserys. So I'm getting very emotional about this.
That's gross. I didn't think about her marrying Viserys. That's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross.
And that, you know, there is this real journey of self-discovery with her that I feel we're just missing in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, she is a character that we don't just root for because
No.
we're supposed to, because of her bloodline or whatever. She earns it, which does make
Yeah.
it that much more of a stab in the heart if she goes Mad Queen.
Right.
But I it's very hard to not have that transition be justified. Like it's like
Yes.
it's like when we're like, hey, Tyrion's the smart guy, and then all of a sudden Tyrion's real stupid.
Yeah.
You're like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Because I was on board with him being the smart guy.
Right.
So we're like, Daenerys is the strong one. Now all of a sudden she's a weak pile of tears.
Right.
Okay, people can fall apart.
Sure.
That's totally.
Totally.
How did she get there?
Yeah.
And I think that's that's genuine criticism because thinking about because I do kind of accept a lot of the show for as is. Like there are a lot of there's other shows I'm more critical of, but. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways, we got questions. I want to.
yeah.
I didn't have a transition there, so just moving into it. Starting with Trisha. This is from Caleb Marie 033. My question for Trisha is: how mad are you? Because they. This goes to Emma as well.
Amazing.
And also, since you weren't able to give a rating for the episode in our main YouTube episode, out of 10, Euron's being number 1, what would you give? What would you give your rage for this episode? Euron getting
my
smart.
rage?
Your rage.
I legit could not sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night because I was so mad about this episode. Like, it was funny. Like, I knew. So Arya rides off on the horse.
Yep.
And I was like, they're going to roll credits, and this is going to be the end of this episode. And, like, I was, like, seething. And then the second that the credits rolled, I was like, I just looked at my husband, and I was like, I am so irate right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't even put into words how mad I am. So I just tweeted out, like, I am so mad right now because I don't like to tweet spoilers. But especially that night.
That's a good rule.
That is a very good rule to
Yeah,
follow.
because I don't get to watch it until later now. So I'm like, I get it. But yeah, it's still, I mean, it's the reason I can't give it a rating because I do think that Game of Thrones as a show is such a brilliant moment in our television history that we're
Agreed.
getting these amazing cinematic movie-like
Yeah.
television shows. And I love Game of Thrones, the series. I just feel so completely betrayed on behalf of the characters that I have lived with for so long.
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously, everyone who watches the series and everyone at this table has different opinions, and it's totally fine to have different opinions. But for anyone out there who is angry, I'm with you.
So what, you rate your angry like a 10? You're like 10
Out of
angry?
10, my
Yeah.
angry is like 25 out of 10.
Okay, all right. What about you, Emma?
Oh, I'm definitely.
Now it's a competition.
I'm definitely at least a 10. You know, it's funny, and I think Trisha, you brought up a really good point earlier, and we're again talking about Daenerys. Is that I should have felt heartbroken that she made this decision.
Yes.
But instead, I felt nothing. I felt frustrated. I felt like I saw this coming.
Right.
It's very much. I would liken it very much to the Star Wars prequels with Anakin, where like we should have been upset that Anakin became Darth Vader, but we're like, nope, that makes sense.
Also, someone brought up a great point. It was in a tweet that it was like, Anakin did the same thing. He murdered kids. He went and did that, but they cut away from it because it's a movie, and they couldn't have tricked kids into watching that.
But
And
HBO,
this,
man.
you watched the full murder of kids,
children.
and then he found a daycare, and he just booked it over there. I did actually. In the last episode we mentioned, or you guys brought when we talked about Arya and the Hound scene together.
Yes.
The last one, which I found it sweet. But you bring up a great point, and now I'm like been sitting here just kind of rethinking, and I'm like, actually, that doesn't make sense. She
No.
learned how to cook a dude into a pie and then fed it to someone. I'm
Yeah.
like, she's full
I mean,
revenge,
I've
rage,
seen
monster. Like she's kind of a monster. Like honestly,
She
she is someone that bad stories will be told about.
So I have seen some people, and I do really enjoy the relationship between Arya and the Hound, and Sansa and the Hound. Like, he is a character that genuinely has come to care about both of those girls, and he does have a connection with them. However, I'm definitely on board with Trisha of she should have at least gone as far with him as to see him have that confrontation with his brother. Like, there needed to be something else of yes, the Hound said something to her that like put the seed in Arya's mind, but ultimately let the decision be her own.
I thought the decision was because he's presenting her with information, and she just, unlike John and Danny, decides to take
Well,
that information.
listen,
It's like,
John
actually,
just
you know
needs
what?
to be-
Good point.
John just needs to be like, Danny, sorry. I know it's super normal for Targaryens to sleep with their like immediate relatives, but that's not really how the Starks roll.
And I've only been with one other person, and she had like really nothing to do with me.
Right.
Honestly, that might be my thing. Is I sleep with people that I'm just not related to. So sorry.
Yeah.
Don't mean to judge your stuff.
Yeah, I didn't hate the Arya and the Hound thing, but I certainly didn't love it, and I agree with a lot of Trish's criticisms of it.
But I do like that it led to Arya being the person that we watch getting shit. Also, just
Oh,
because not that she's
yeah.
not formidable, she's the smallest actor on the show, so
Yeah.
she's just like get out or like just whatever. But like you're like just I don't think you can spy or assassin your way out of the situation.
No.
Unless
So-
she remembered the tunnel.
They're filled with rocks, Trisha. They're filled with rocks. We don't know that. Maybe she went and
We
looked
don't
and
know
saw.
that. Maybe she
don't
looked
know.
and
Yeah,
saw
maybe
a
she-
scene we didn't
Yeah,
get
maybe
to
there
see.
was a deleted scene.
I like that the showrunners described it as clogged up. It's like backed up again. Oh no! She's like can't go down there.
Yeah, I even feel like on the ride down there with the Hound, like he's like, I'm not coming back, and she's like, I don't intend to either. Like she was, so him being like, hey, if you do this, you're gonna die. The Arya that we know has strong enough convictions that I don't know that would have phased her in that moment. I do love him planting the seed of like, if your entire life is about revenge, you will become me,
You get
and you don't
nothing.
want to be that. And because of the love that she does share on some level for him, that registers. But I don't know. I feel like the Arya we knew would have still been like, cool, I'm just gonna kill Cersei real quick, or at least make sure she's dead,
Yeah,
and
but
then
then-
this life of revenge.
But see, that's the
maybe
thing.
I'll
But then that makes
reconsider.
Arya like Danny. Her convictions lead to her own destruction. So
But
it's
but couldn't it have been so great if we had a scene of like Arya makes it to the Red Keep and then decides to not kill Cersei?
well, but
That
she's
would've
in,
been
she's in
better.
the red. That is the scene. She's in the Red Keep, and she's like, you know what? That's her on the map.
But
We're
I
on
want
the-
her to get to Cersei.
Yeah.
Like, and I agree that this is me being
Yeah.
something that I want. But what an incredible scene it would have been if she had that conversation with the Hound and then she gets to the point where she can get what she thinks she has always wanted, and then she thinks about that conversation they had and is like, you know what? I'm not gonna do that.
Because I already took out the devil, so you're basically.
So
throwing
it's
potatoes
like
to
not a
me.
big deal.
You can go ahead and die in the rocks down
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go make out with your brother, you freaking freak. I mean, my brother does that too now.
Oh, yikes, yikes.
So we got a question here from Austin Gould 6. Shout out, what a good dude. Woof, this episode was nuts. John versus Danny. Question, how the hell, we'll swear, are they going to wrap this up? Let's kick it off with Emma. When
My God.
picturing the episode now with what we have, I can't not think that Arya is going to try to take a swing at Danny, and she's fully capable
know.
of taking her down, but at the same time, it's like, I don't see that happening
I
either.
don't, and I sort of don't know if I want that to happen. I don't know where to go from here, and I just can't perceive of any ending that's gonna be satisfying at this point for me. You know what? I will say this for them. I have no idea where they're going to go next episode. So good on ya, Game of Thrones writers.
What about you, Trisha? What do you think this episode?
I'm very much in the same camp. I
Yeah.
don't know how they can wrap this up in a way that is going to be at all satisfying in one episode. I hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I do root for the show. I love this series. I am in no way books are better than show person. I've loved everything the series has done up until recently. And I hope that they pull something out of their butt that works. But right now I feel like we're so fucked that I don't know how that can happen.
Yeah.
Never heard that before.
I'm working real hard on not swearing lately, so I'm only mildly successful.
Yeah.
DJ, how about you?
I see two potential ways. I think when our guest last week, Katie, talked about Sansa being the one to get on the throne, I think that also made me more comfortable with what was going on with Danny.
Yeah.
Because then there's still the idea of a female
Oh.
going to rule. And again, going through a similar arc as Danny, but not succumbing to her darker impulses. So they have to deal with Danny because she has a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way at this point, she's not going to put up with Sansa's opinions on the North being free. But I could see a way where John ends up marrying Danny to kind of like quell her dark impulses, and we end where we began with kind of a loveless marriage on the throne. But it works well, and Tyrion's the hand and all that jazz. I also see a way where Sansa or somebody else ends up on, if the Iron Throne's even still around after all this destruction.
Right.
And Jon, maybe him sending Tormund and Ghost up beyond the wall was like a hint, and he's just like, you know what, I'm going to hang out with the free folk. I'm going to hang out with Tormund and Ghost. And we end with just him chilling up north.
Right,
And he's like,
beyond
I'm
the wall.
out. I'm done.
I mean, the wall doesn't
I did my
exist.
bit.
I would
y'all-
buy that.
Yeah, and then somebody like Sansa ends up on the throne. And they all chill through the winter. Although you don't want to be beyond the wall during the winter.
No.
I mean, it's significantly better than it used to be.
It's true.
Significantly
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, honestly, I kind of leads to our next question because I think this could be an outcome for one of our characters. Gnarls Rar. Yes. Nope, that's Gnarls Rar. That's their name.
Yeah.
Gnarls Rar.
Yeah.
Do you think Tyrion will find his way out and into safety, or will he get caught and burned like Viserys? I don't think he's going to get burned. And
I don't think he is
I
either.
think to seal the chapter on Dany becoming Mad Queen or whatnot, I think he's going to die, and I think it's going to be by her hand, or she orders someone else to do it. I don't think he's making it out of this finale. I don't see it.
I also see, because we've spent so much time with Dany, her having a Jaime-esque moment where she's like, "Wow, man, I really messed up." If she goes out, I could see her be like, "Yeah, I really bungled this one," and I could see maybe Jon taking her out, or her and Jon taking each other out, and kind of being like, "Whoops, hey, you know what? At least we were around to take out the Night King."
Yeah.
I would be more.
Oops.
I would be more okay with that if she at least had some moment of recognition for what happened, rather than just like I blacked out.
Right. Yeah, I guess I could see there being again
Blacked out.
sort of a
What
yeah.
happened? I missed it.
Like
The
a,
fumes from the UV, I couldn't see.
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't mind her and Jon almost having a confrontation of her realizing what she's done and that she can't come back from it, and her basically like asking him to kill her, maybe, I don't know, but and then maybe they kill each other, and then like I feel like at this point Tyrion and Sansa probably just should get back together
married.
and be the king and queen of Westeros.
Listen, it wouldn't be the best, but it wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the worst. Oh, by the way, the reason I think Jon could end up marrying Dany, like, how would that happen? If she's pregnant, because he doesn't want another bastard.
But she's not supposed to be able to have
According
children
to
anymore.
Miri, yeah, but like
Because of the
I
demon
could see Jon being confronted like, "Hey, I have your baby," and Jon being like, "I hated being a
Oh, you
bastard.
mean
I'll
like
marry you."
he would get Rob's storyline from the books, where the only reason he married Jane Westerling was because they slept together?
Yeah.
Yay.
You know what? That would be an interesting ending to this series, though, of like, oh, and the heir to the throne is another Targaryen, baby. Flip a coin.
No.
Like Black Sopranos ending.
No.
Nobody knows what's going to happen
What
in
if
the
they
future.
did? What if they did do a Sopranos ending? It's like Arya's walking up to the keep. And it's just like, what?
People would be so mad.
Someone's brain would melt. By the way, just fun fact, Joelville pointed out, y'all remember on Father's Day when Tyrion killed Tywin, the death of Cersei on Mother's Day? It doesn't
I
feel...
said that last
Yeah,
week.
you
I was
did.
like, they're
You
straight
did.
up going to kill
The-
Cersei
Yeah.
on Mother's
I
Day.
didn't know about Tywin. I mean,
Well,
I don't know
so,
many fun facts about the show,
Sure.
so it's all new to me.
Obviously, having read the books, I knew that was coming on that Father's Day episode. So for that Father's Day, I sent my dad a Tywin Lannister Funko figure with a note that said, "Hope you're having a better Father's Day than this guy."
Yeah.
Because
Well done.
my parents have read the books too,
Cool,
so they
cool,
knew
cool,
it was
cool.
coming. So
That's hilarious.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
yeah,
That'd be creepy if they hadn't read the books.
No,
They'd
we're
be like,
kind of
"Are you threatening?"
no,
happening?
we're a Game of Thrones family.
Now, last question we got here from Kayla Marie 033. We talked about this a little bit, but Emma, I want to know from you.
Yes.
Did you find Cersei's decisions to be dumb? Did you find her, for one of the smartest characters on the show, did you find her being so confident with, with her not having a backup
Okay.
plan?
I was surprised she did not have a backup plan, I will say, because she is a very smart character and we have seen her turn the tides in her favor before. I do think that at this point, she knew that she had met her match, but she was so fiercely in denial about it. And I wanted to see more of that. Cersei didn't really get to play an active role in this season basically at all. She tried to order some elephants off of Amazon Prime and
Yeah.
is immediately canceling her membership because they did not arrive.
They did
All
not
she got was
arrive.
a Euron.
Yeah. and you know, and again, it's like they set up some stuff where we like see her playing Euron, being like, oh yeah, our baby is totally gonna be the king of everything, and then to just have her, I thought it was a very fitting ending for Jaime. I totally bought into Jaime's ending. And that being said, I 100% sympathize with and adore everybody that is so mad that Jaime didn't get this redemption that people wanted him to get, because he seemed like things were going well. It felt very on brand for Game of Thrones to have Jaime end up where he did.
Yeah.
Basically be like, I can't change.
No.
And that means, before I get back into Cersei, side note, when Jaime and Euron had that confrontation, first of all, shout out to Nick Mundy for his tweet that was like,
What'd he
glad
say?
we finally settled that Jaime-Euron rivalry that was seasons in the making.
Yeah.
I too am happy.
But also, when Euron showed up, Jaime like takes a swing at him, and I was like, how dope would it be if he just immediately decapitated him and that whole scene was over?
Oh my god, that would make me so happy, like the Qyburn death.
Yes.
Where it's just like,
the Qyburn death was like, we're out. So good. Yes. But yeah, I wanted more from Cersei. I didn't mind where it ended. There's no universe wherein I should have been rooting for Jaime and Cersei to get back together, yet here we are, their reunion. I was so happy they found each other, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? I don't know what I just wanted something else from Cersei. I did want a confrontation between she and Daenerys. If Daenerys had just flown to the Red Keep, and like we could see Cersei really stick to her guns and then get blown away, like literally in the keep, that would have been amazing. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't buy her completely falling apart.
yeah, she ran away and died hiding. And I feel like we should have gotten more from arguably one of the best players of the game.
Or something that drove her to that point more than Daenerys burning the city, because she was pretty ready to just stand in the Red Keep.
I kind of thought that Qyburn might turn the dragon they killed into like a mountain situation, but hey, we ran out of time. Yeah, scorpions. You thought those were gonna be good.
Also, can we talk for a second about how, again, they just bring in Euron, who's amazing at everything, apparently, mostly killing dragons. So in the last episode, when they kill the dragon, why doesn't Dany immediately do what she does in this episode, which is fly low and burn the fleet? We didn't even need the fleet to be around in this episode.
Well, that goes back to the same, like, when they're there for the parlay. Why
Yes.
don't they just use the scorpions to shoot Daenerys
yeah,
right
like
there?
Yeah.
pushing them right there.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that's gonna have a Tyrion.
Because show.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
dramatic tension and show, which
suspend your disbelief. I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
I'm down. I'll
Yeah.
suspend my disbelief for that. That's fine. For
Yeah.
the purposes of drama.
And
I got it.
Will we, in the final scene, be like, uh-oh, Arya's going up to kill Dany. John's gonna step in. Does he have to kill Arya or kill Dany? And then all of a sudden you hear, rumble. When could that be? Kraken starts coming out. And they're like, oh no, we gotta team up. We gotta go together.
waiting for a Kraken.
Cut
I
to
was
black, and we're
Yeah.
like, nothing's resolved.
No, I'm like, Euron, you had one job, which was to summon a freaking Kraken,
the Kraken.
and you never did it.
They put suction cups on the outside of their scorpions. There you go. And fans, you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
Bummer about the elephants. Bummer about Ghost. But also the CGI in this episode was crazy.
It was crazy.
They knew how to animate killing children.
No, the cinematography in this was incredible. It
Yeah.
really was. Killing children aside,
It's what they spent their money on.
they did and they did a very good job.
It was
by
terrifying.
again framing it from Arya's perspective of trying to get out of the city, of making you care
Yes.
about what was happening to the people down there. I am not gonna say that wasn't incredibly well done. It really was. So yeah, I just yeah.
So fingers crossed that in next episode they can make a lot of this episode make sense.
Sure.
It makes sense.
Right.
Give us that, please. But I've been hoping for that from this show
Yeah.
since Arya's crazy. I didn't actually finish my training yet. I can do all the cool stuff anyway and don't worship the deity. What? Ever since that kind of stuff, like I'm like,
Yeah.
no way, it's gonna come. She's really the waif. Like it's gonna happen in some season that there's gonna be some
Yeah.
surprise. This all makes sense, and it never did.
She's 100% going to use a different face in this next episode, right?
Please!
Oh,
She
yeah,
has
she's
zero
got
bags
to.
with her. There's no reason she has anything that she would need to do that,
Yeah.
but she's going to do it.
Yeah.
She's
I
so going to
just,
do it.
yeah, I hope that they give us some justification, even if it's in hindsight, of Daenerys' motivations in that moment.
Yeah,
That's my
I
biggest thing.
agree. And now I'm sort of thinking like, maybe there is gonna be a Jon stands by Dany, and there's a confrontation between Jon and Arya.
Maybe.
But Arya wouldn't hesitate to kill Jon, but it would be sad. But
I don't know. I feel like we definitely saw Jon shift when he saw his
I
men
agree.
raping, and like
Yeah.
I feel like we definitely saw him have a moment where he was like, "Oh wait, this is bad."
uh-huh.
But what's good is that we got a lot of edits of the Curb Your Enthusiasm song.
Yeah.
With a lot of people from this episode, because yes,
Amazing.
everything did go to shit.
Yes.
Like you wouldn't believe. But Emma, thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us.
thanks for
What would
having
you
me.
rate this episode? I asked you about Rage, but if you out of 10, what would you give it?
There were a couple of things I liked, so 2,
Ooh.
3,
Hot take.
maybe 4.
Whoa.
That would be generous. Yeah, I'm mad, and I have lots of reasons for being mad, and mostly it's not that I feel the writing is bad. It's that I feel that it relies on some bad, overused tropes in the name of justification, air quotes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I appreciate thank you for answering our questions, and I appreciate I appreciate your passion for this
Yeah.
show and the books and this episode, because this is a good episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know in the Discord, but also make sure you're following Emma. Where can they find you?
I can be found all over the internet at my name, Emma Fife.
Boom. Go ahead and check that out, and make sure you tune in Monday for our review of the finale. We're going to do an after show as well, which is going to be a blast. And also, if you're part of our $50 tier, you guys are going to be a part of it in a really cool way, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be very cool. We appreciate you guys. Gays? I guess that's what I said at the end. I was trying to say guys and gangs, and we got in the middle, but we appreciate you.
You
and
happy people.
We do
you happy
appreciate you.
people. We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, that's what I said. That's guess what I ended on. Stay frosty. Boom.
Oh, man.
All right. Quick clap.
Yep.
Do it.
Clap here. Bingo.
Cool.
I messed that up, but there you go.
Good stuff.
Bye-bye.
Oh boy.
Cool.
Right.